And it's not just about the tree itself, it's also about all the other aspects around it. So is there slave labour being used in this particular forest? Are people being fairly paid? Is the land legitimate? Does the government authorise it and so on? And we started to map those those processes. I had nothing to do other than sort of walk around, and nobody wanted to talk to me because, for all the obvious reasons. So I thought, oh gosh, I've got to get involved in something. So I reached out to this business that I invested ages ago, and I quite quickly became chairman there, and then subsequently, after a few months, became CEO, which is what I'm kind of currently doing in iov42. For me, that was quite an interesting journey because the breadth of vision this founder had, which was basically to say, look, there is something in this blockchain technology, but it doesn't work for business. And what I want to do is to build something that works for business. That was the sort of hypothesis. And why doesn't it work for business? And what would make it work for business? Because as we know, in business, the fundamentals of doing business is, you've got to know who you're dealing with. You can't just deal with anyone. You need to know who you're dealing with. You've got to know that the asset you're wanting to buy or sell or trade really does exist. You've got to know that it works in line with regulation, and that you're not doing anything illegal in the process. All those sorts of things. Yeah. And that you've got to use the infrastructure that business uses, and businesses for processing tend to use data centers. They don't use a whole string of individual laptops tied together, as it were. And so he built this kind of a brand new protocol that is not based on Ethereum or Bitcoin or anything else. He built his own protocol.
Right. So
it's
your own.
It's our own protocol,
blockchain.
Proprietary blockchain.
Yeah.
To solve the problems that very general terms that I articulated. And when I kind of got more involved, it was just at the point after a few years. I mean, we did the classic thing: is you don't build a technology without knowing what the use case is first.
Yeah, but sure.
We built the technology with this much grander vision, and at the time that I got more involved, the technology was available to be used for the first time. Was kind of it's finally usable based on the principles that I've just mentioned.
Can I ask you on that one, Dominic? What type of assets are we talking about here with iov42? What assets do you? I know it's a blockchain asset hosting. Is it just all types of digital assets, like cryptocurrency, for example, digital identity?
No, we don't have a coin, any sort of currency dynamic. We very consciously we could have done, but we very consciously decided we need to separate ourselves. From all the sort of crypto stuff, Coinbase stuff, because there's a lot of hype around all of that. And essentially it wasn't relating in the way that we wanted to directly to business purpose. And so we chose not to have coins. We chose to articulate our proposition in terms of digital identities, and we are not a company that decides who is a valid identity, but we provided a methodology through which our customers could define identity, and that was the underlying kind of logic. And our first use case happened to be in the area of timber, slightly by accident, in that we were meeting people as we were starting to evolve this technology that were in that space. And as you probably know, there's an enormous challenge with timber. The World Bank says something like 15 to 30% of timber is illegally harvested. And we hear about the impact of that all the time around the world, correct? So, that trees are felled illegally, that they are pushed into countries and sold illegally. And that is a major worldwide.
That's a global thing then? So even timber in the UK, which is it illegally sort of sourced in the UK, or is it more an export? It comes. I think
it's more of an export-import thing.
Yeah, sure.
But because most of the timber that we kind of read about, particularly hardwoods, come out of whether it's South America or Africa or in the Far East, and these are big challenges getting this right. And so the challenge is, how do you start to create trust in an area where there is no provenance, where there is no trust. And the Eureka ultimate solution is to be able to say, right, I've planted a tree here. I know exactly what that tree is. I can see it on the
you've got the
satellite.
full life cycle of it. Yeah,
exactly. And that's basically those are the solutions that we are now currently building.
That's brilliant. I think the concept of ownership is getting turned on its head. I think it all used to be done. I was talking to someone in the aerospace sector, and we were talking about provenance around complex tooling for aircraft. So, for example, there's certain wrenches to fix Boeing aircraft, just to give it an example. Whereas if you haven't got the provenance, the ledger of that wrench, okay, that wrench is worthless. You can't use it, and it's worth thousands of pounds. So the regulators come in, and if you ain't got a logbook for that wrench, then you may as well throw it away because you can't use it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But do you know how people record this at the moment in many manufacturing plants for aero? In handwritten logbooks. This was up until a couple of years ago. I mean, which is unbelievable. Unbelievable. So that just shows you how much of an opportunity that is here with digital, non-fungible tokens and things.
That's exactly what we've been dealing with. Because you think about it, and it's not just about the tree itself. It's also about all the other aspects around it. So, is there slave labour being used in this particular forest? Are people being fairly paid? Is the land legitimate? Does the government, authorise it and so on? So what we got started in this area with the process of timber production from the moment a tree, let's say a log from a tree, arrives at a sawmill and it gets converted in a sawmill into, let's say, planks of wood, which are then stored for export, let's say, to the UK or Europe or wherever. And we started to map those, those processes. And all the things that you refer to, everything was done but in paper, and they would have verifiers or certifiers, that would be well known, flying into the sawmill on a periodic basis to check that the paper's right and check the processes are right. One of the byproducts of actually doing what we've done, which is to be able to put that on the blockchain. The fundamental point about blockchain technology, incidentally. I don't know how well your readers would understand blockchain, but a very simple speak is like a sort of spreadsheet in the sky. And when you put the data into a cell, it cannot be rubbed out. It cannot be changed.
Yeah,
so there's
it's an immutable database, isn't it?
It's an immutable database. So there's a fundamental premise of trust at that very moment.